Walk us through, let's assume someone who's listening hasn't heard any of this yet. In a nutshell, what has happened? What has transpired? What do we know? And where are we now?
Yeah, definitely a chaotic weekend, horrific what has taken place. Yet again, it seems like in Minnesota, I think we're dubbed now the capital of chaos, and really some horrific moments. So this all begins Saturday at 2 a.m. Just outside of Minneapolis in a suburb with the shooting of Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette. We now know the man you're seeing now on your screen, Vance Bolter, a 57-year-old man from Minnesota. He shoots Senator Hoffman. He's now charged with these crimes, and his wife. And then he stops at two other locations of different legislators in Minnesota in the same area before he ends up finally at former Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark's home. That's in Brooklyn Park, so just a few miles from Champlin, about a quick drive. And this is where he kills the former House Speaker, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, Mark. Very horrifying situation, obviously, and this man comes dressed as a police officer. This is how he identifies himself, we understand, to Senator Hoffman, says, "Open up, police," and you can see he's wearing a mask here. He has what looks to be a flashlight. We've been told he was wearing body armor. And looked like a police officer. There are questions why he was, let into the home. Still so many questions with all of this, but this murderous rampage then finally ends at the Hoffman residence, and this is about 3:30, so about 90 minutes later. And this is when he's interrupted by police. An alert police officer said, "Hey, we should go check out, the former speaker's home, Melissa Hortman." And this is when police come upon the scene, and it sounds like there's kind of a bit of a confrontation between police and this suspect, Vance Bolter. Bolter somehow goes inside the Hortman residence. Shots are fired. This is when Melissa and her husband, Mark, are tragically killed. He gets out the back door. He escapes on foot. He was even driving what looked to be a police cruiser. That's what was in the driveway with lights on, and sets him back to a Minneapolis residence. Turns out he'd been renting a room for the last couple of years in Minneapolis where he'd stay a couple of times a week. So there's more to be said about just that address in Minneapolis as well. Finally, the manhunt for him comes to an end. It's about 43 hours later in Green Isle, Minnesota, not very far from his actual residence in Green Isle where he lived with his wife and 5 children. And basically surrendered. He surrendered to law enforcement. They had him surrounded in a field in Green Isle, a rural area. He came out with his hands up and basically identified himself as Vance Bolter.
So that's, and what a harrowing story. Clearly something that no one in the state of Minnesota was expecting to wake up to or hear about, and a horrifying word to happen anywhere. At this point, and I've seen in Post Millennial had some stuff earlier today, I'm sure you have this as well, about these handwritten notes that he had been making using publicly available databases to look up some of the addresses. Clearly not the sign of someone who is operating, to my estimation, in their right mind. The handwritten notes, all of this. Is there any indication, Liz, what his motive was in terms of what was he hoping to accomplish with any of this? Was he trying to send a message? Had these people wronged him in some way? Was there any payoff whatsoever? Or because it just seems like this is wanton violence?
Yeah, still a lot of questions there. And you had the acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson fielding questions yesterday at the first press conference. Since these charges, he was asked that multiple times, but he said there doesn't seem to be any sort of clear-cut motive at this point. At first, they described a manifesto that he left, but really more than anything, it was a hit list. Alpha News obtained that hit list, if you will, and there were about 60 Democrats on it. Also, some Planned Parenthood locations. So one would think if this had something to do with the abortion issue. But really yesterday, authorities kind of backed off anything to do with that. He'd clearly been stalking and doing some, reconnaissance surrounding some of these people for some time. And I think more of that will come out. And actually, the people that lived in Minneapolis were aware of him showing up just a couple of times a week. They thought it was strange, but they thought he was a detective. He would leave every day with his briefcase when he would stay at that residence and drive off in what looked to be a police cruiser. And there's a lot of information about, some different companies he was attached to. And I know much has been made about this workforce development board that Walz did appoint him to, and he was not reappointed back in 2023. However, Walz, or a source from Walz, told the newspaper here in Minnesota that Governor Walz did not know him, but Governor Walz has not said anything publicly about that yet.
And so, has there been any information about was it others that he may have been working with? So we saw that his wife apparently had also been arrested in this, really blaring headline, that she had money in cash, passports, others, 5 children that they had between the two of them, yet don't necessarily seem to be involved. I can't imagine. Was this some sort of plot between the two of them?
I think that's a good question, because we learned yesterday, just in the charging documents attached to this case, that Vance Bolter did text his wife that morning. So these texts came in after 6 a.m. So this would have been a few hours after the murders of the Hortman family. But he sent a text to his wife that said, "Dad went to war last night. Words are not going to explain how sorry I am for the situation. There's going to be some people coming to the house armed and trigger happy, and I don't want you guys around." So this is when my law enforcement sources have said they're pinging, the wife's phone, which wouldn't be uncommon in, a situation like this. And this is when she's pulled over. She's pulled over in Onamia, Minnesota, excuse me, which is quite a drive from Green Isle. So is she leaving at that moment? She has been released, and they have said that she is cooperating with authorities. But obviously, these text messages, I think raise some questions as well.
Well, and it's possible. I suppose a number of things are possible. That could be a set phrase. That could be something where she's told to go, but had no idea what quote unquote daddy was doing. So it very well be, or potentially, something that, and of course I'm just positing here. I don't have any special information, or potentially she did have an idea of what was going on and she was trying to get away from it. Again, I really don't know. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here as to various, various scenarios that could be playing out. And of course, we'll see what remains to be found out when lawyers get involved, when debriefings get involved, interrogations, interviews, all the rest of it. Liz, what has been the response, I guess, politically, and obviously this is politically charged, there in Minnesota?
I think that in the world we live in, Jack, this better than most of us as well. It seems that everybody there has to be a side, there has to be a political angle to this. Clearly, this guy is a monster more than anything else. You have the mainstream media in Minnesota, of course, saying, he's a Trump supporter because his roommate has said that, and they don't seem to be wanting to look much further than that, of course. And he certainly seemed to align himself with, pro-life, the pro-life movement. If, this list of 60 Democrats and this Planned Parenthood is, in fact, this hit list. They also found flyers that had "No Kings" scrawled across them in his vehicle as well. So I think, you see that more than anything, it does seem like there is, some unity trying to take place in Minnesota among Republicans and Democrats, as the loss of the Hortman family is mourned.